All right. Are we live? Let me check if we're live yet. Mm, Okay. A very good morning, everybody. This is Prankur, and I am back today with a set of questions curated for Parajumbles practice, sentence rearrangement practice. Before we jump into the questions, though, allow me to give you a quick introduction to the Unacademy portal, the Unacademy platform. Right. Unacademy is perhaps India's largest learning platform today when it comes to preparing for any and every competitive exam. This YouTube channel is particularly for management exams such as your CAT, GMAT, and MAT, IFT, and the likes. I am Prankur Arora. I'm going to be your instructor on this journey of learning. I've been in the learning industry for a better part of the last couple of years, where I've even had the opportunity to consult with various organizations on different aspects of learning and development. Organizations such as Marico Limited, ITC Limited, Becton Dickinson India, Interglobe Air Transport, you know, different industries, different organizations, different learning and development areas that I impacted. I'm also a published author. I wrote a book called It's Not Funny a couple of years back, got published, and even garnered favorable reviews from the likes of, Biswapati Sarkar, Papa CJ, comedy legends, satire legends in our country. So the book itself is a work of satirical fiction, right? So if you're fond of satire or if you're fond of dark sardonic humor, do check it out. I hold advanced certifications in facilitation from Leadership Management International, and of late I'm running my own startup which is called Thought Sutra, which is pertaining to the creative arts. Right, so if you've got a creative bone in you, do check it out. There are quite a lot of features that add to the pedagogy of an academy. Some of those features include giving you access to daily live classes where all kinds of interaction between the learners and the educator happens in real time. You can engage in discussions, ask your questions. Even the question answers, they are conducted in the form of live polls, right? So you participate in those polls, and with every correct answer, you're climbing up on the leaderboard, right? Which is broadcast to anybody and everybody who's a part of that lesson. Also, all the tests and quizzes, they are conducted live, and they're conducted so that we can help you evaluate your performance. We can help you gain perspective about where you are versus where you ought to be when it comes to your learning journey. Plus, all the courses on the platform are structured courses, very much in line with the exam syllabus that you're preparing for. And with one subscription to the platform, right, you get unlimited access to all kinds of live and recorded courses that you can access from the comfort of any of your devices. Quite a lot of educators on the platform. All of these people are highly credible people who've over the years mentored thousands and thousands of aspirants into various top tier management institutions. IIMs, MDIs, XLRIs, ISBs, you name it, they've cracked it. New classes, they keep on going live on the platform, right? You can experience all these plus classes for free and start learning from the best of educators before you decide whether you want to avail the key benefits that come along with subscription to the platform or not, right? New batches, new courses, they keep on going live. And language is never a barrier. Language is never a barrier because we've got educators who teach in vernacular languages as well. So if you're not as comfortable in English, we've got educators who will teach in vernacular languages as well, right? Also, a really cool thing about the platform is that you design your own schedule. You decide what are the kind of courses you want to enroll into, who are the educators you want to be learning from, right? All that ownership is on you. right? And you can basically start learning from all these educators, from all the you can avail all the courses, and the idea essentially is that you can access them from any of your devices, be it a tablet, a phone, a PC. That's not a barrier at all. And as I mentioned, everything happens in real time on the platform, right? And the the format of live polls, it's another adrenaline rush altogether, trust me, right? And we give you in-depth insights, in-depth analysis in all the tests and quizzes that you participate. Right now, what do I mean by in-depth insights? We give you data such as the time you're spending on every question, the topic wise scores, right? So you'll know how much time you're spending on Parajumbles questions versus para summary questions, and what are your score in Parajumbles and para summaries, right? So that will help you do some course correction if need be, right? If I'm performing better in para jumbles, maybe I need to put more time on para summary practice versus the para jumbles practice, stuff like that. That'll help you develop a lot of perspective. Also, you'll see that I'll be scribbling a lot of things on the class notes throughout the lesson. All these class notes, they're made available to you once you subscribe to the platform. And talking of subscription, these are the various models that are made available to you. You can clearly see that as the time period of subscription goes up, the cost of subscription per month is going down dramatically. Right now, uh, if you're preparing for 2021, I would highly recommend that you opt for at least a 6 month or a 12-month journey, so that you give yourself that gestation period to develop the comfort level with the course, with the educator, with the pedagogy of an academy. Because we understand this is not physical learning anymore, it is virtual learning. It takes some time to develop the comfort level. So I would recommend that you give yourself that comfort of time. And if you use my name Prankur, you get an extra 10% off on any of the subscriptions that you're going for, right? So let's begin with our practice for the day. This is the first question. Right, take 2 minutes, solve this, and then we'll discuss it. Right. I trust that you'd have figured it out by now. Let's discuss this. Right. Um, the French Revolution created a vision for a new moral universe. Right. Good morning, Divyansh. Good morning. Welcome to the class. Uh, did you just tune in? Did you just join in? Okay, Divyansh, then give me your answer for this before I move into the discussion for this question. Try and solve it. Give me your answer. Anushka thinks it's option 4. All right. All right, let's discuss this now, Divyansh. We're talking about the French Revolution. We're saying it created a vision for a new moral universe that sovereignty resides in nations. Okay, you think it's 4 as well? Cool. That a constitution and the rule of law govern politics, that people are equal and enjoy inalienable rights, and that church and state should be separate. The French Revolution invented modern revolution, the idea that humans can transform the world according to a plan and so has a central place in the study of the social sciences. It ushered in modernity by destroying the foundations of the old regime, absolutist politics, legal inequality, a feudal economy characterized by guilds, manorialism, and even serfdom, and an alliance of church and state. That vision is enshrined in the Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen in 1789, whose proclamation of natural imprescriptible and inalienable rights served as the model for the 1948 United Nations Universal Declaration. All right, so we can clearly see that A is talking about a vision and D is developing on that vision, right? D is talking about D begins with that vision. What vision are we talking about? The vision that option that sentence A is laying out. So A and D are a link, right? And also, we know for a fact that we are talking about how French Revolution invented modern revolution and that it assured in modernity by doing all these things, right? So B and C are also a link where B talks about how it invented modern revolution. AD are pair, right? And BC are also pair, right? It invented modern revolution. How did it do it? It did it by destroying the foundations of the old regime. Now, the idea is when we know for a fact that BC are a link and AD are a link, right? We can clearly eliminate options 2 and 3. We are left with 1 and 4, right? We have the pairs here also and here also, right? Okay. आई थिंक मेरे मैसेजेस लेट जाते हैं. अच्छा. पता नहीं यार, वो नेटवर्क लैग की वजह से हो सकता है. आई डोंट नो. ADBC are a link, BCAD are a link. How do we choose between the two? So the idea is, if you look closely, C is talking about how it destroyed foundations of the old regime, which included an alliance of church and state, right? And A develops on that fact by saying that it created a vision for a new universe where this was that, and that church and state should be separate. So C talks about how it ushered in modernity by destroying an alliance of church and state, and A talks about how it created a vision for a new universe where church and state should be separate, right? Therefore A will follow C, right? A will follow C. So BCAD in that context becomes the most viable arrangement of these sentences and is better than the first one, right? Let's move on to the next question. The fourth one. All right. Anushka, what is your answer? Let's look at whether Anushka's got an answer or not. Okay, Anushka thinks it's option one. Right, let's look at all the sentences. The Cold War was underpinned by an understanding which allowed the US to maintain hegemony over the capitalist world, and which gave the Soviet Union a regional sphere of influence in Eastern Europe. The bloody upheavals and wars occurred not in Europe, America, or Russia, but in Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, and were either directly or indirectly a response to the experience of Western colonialism. All right. Um, Despite the aggressive rhetoric of this era, uh, the Cold War was a period of relative peace between hostile geopolitical blocs. In retrospect, what was remarkable about the Cold War was the ability of most of the major players to manage their conflict. Hi, Sivni. Good morning. Okay, you think it's option one as well. All right. So the idea essentially is Divyansh, I think Anushka and Sivni have gotten it right. The answer is ADCB, and that's because understand that this paragraph is talking about how Cold War was peaceful, right? Even though the rhetoric was aggressive, Cold War was peaceful. And then B talks about how, the bloody upheavals and wars, they occurred in other places. They occurred not in Europe, America, or Russia. They occurred in Asia, Africa, and Middle East, right? So basically, what they're saying is that Europe, America, and Russia were involved in Cold War. These are the areas where actual wars happened because Cold War was peaceful, right? So the idea is we begin with sentence A as the opener, where we talk about how it was underpinned by an understanding which allowed US to maintain hegemony over capitalist world and gave Soviet Union influence in Eastern Europe. Then we develop on it by talking about how Cold War was remarkable in the way that it allowed major players to manage their own conflicts, and that it was a period of relative peace between hostile blocs, and that major bloody wars happened in other areas, not in these areas. Right? Cool. Let's move on to the next question. All right, guys, do you have an answer to this one? Okay, waiting. All right. Okay. All right. Okay, so I have answers from all three. All right, let's look at it. Hmm. The crash in the Alps has launched a search for a solution to the problem of accessing the cockpit from outside if the plane has been commandeered from within. Flight safety has so far focused on threats from the passenger side, and the 9/11 terror episode led to fortification of the cockpit. Hmm. But if they are in a position to act, pilots can override this mechanism. What mechanism are we talking about? Right? That is a question. What mechanism are we talking about? And in exceptional circumstances, such an emergency affecting the pilot and the cockpit area, the crew can use a code that opens the door briefly, or if it opens automatically if the pilots are immobilized due to depressurization. Right? So, what mechanism are we talking about here? But if they are in a position to act, pilots can override this mechanism. What mechanism are we talking about? The idea that the crew can use a code that opens the cockpit door briefly. So, we know for a fact that D comes first and C accompanies, C follows it. Right? D comes first and C follows it, because when we say pilots can override this mechanism, what can they override? They can override the fact that the crew can use a code that opens the cockpit door, or even if it opens automatically if the pilots are immobilized due to depressurization. So, in that context, we eliminate option 1 because यहाँ पे CD है. All the others have DC, right? So this was one link that we had to basically establish. Now, flight safety has so far focused on threats from the passenger side, and the 9/11 terror episode led to fortification of the cockpit. In exceptional circumstances, such as an emergency affecting the pilot and the cockpit area, the crew can use a code. So the idea is B is laying down context, right? B is laying down context about how the or what led to the fortification of the cockpit. Right? Are you getting my point? So B is laying down that context, and D and C are kind of developing on it. अब हमारे पास है, so we know for a fact B will come before D and C. Now the only thing that we have to basically establish, यहाँ पे B जो है that will come before D and C, right? That is why I'm eliminating option 2, Divyansh. Now the idea here is, does A come between B and D, or does A come towards the end? What is A trying to tell us? The crash in the Alps has launched a search for a solution to the problem of accessing the cockpit from outside if the play has been commandeered from within. What do we mean by commandeered from within, right? The idea essentially being cockpit को हम लोग बाहर से कैसे access करें if the plane has been commandeered from within, right? What is commandeering? This is kind of commandeering that, the 9/11 terror episode led to fortification of the cockpit. Flight safety has so far focused on threats from the passenger side, right? That is basically commandeering. And DC are doing what? DC are talking about how pilots can override the code access, right? So in that context, we have BADC being a very viable arrangement of these sentences. Hope you've understood this. Let's move on to the next question. Okay, Divyansh think it's 4. All right. How about you, Anushka, Sivni? Are you still here? Anushka think it's 3. How about you, Sivni? Sivni think it's 3 as well. All right. So Divyansh, I think Anushka and Sivni have gotten it right. It's ACBD and not CABD. We open with A, where we say the main driving force of the British Empire's global expansion was the pursuit of commercial interests, right? And then C develops on it by saying Creating a balance of power and fostering regional stability could help to realize commercial goals. Hence, these became the core of the strategy, right? So, first we are laying down context कि हमारा pursuit of commercial interest was the main driving force. And then we are saying this is the strategy to basically help realize these commercial goals, right? And then we have, obviously, we have B, which says that entailed. What entailed? Right? What entailed helping the weaker side in order to promote a regional balance, right? This entailed, right? So B will follow C then, and then obviously we close with D, that Britain put these practices to use in its continental policy for hundreds of years. All right, next question. All right, so Sivni, the idea essentially here is A is saying that the main driving force of British Empire's global expansion was the pursuit of commercial interests. So I'm giving you context. I'm laying down the context that this is the main aim of British Empire, which is they want to pursue commercial interests, and that is why they are expanding. And then C basically develops on it by saying that in order to achieve it, in order to realize these commercial goals, they had to create a balance of power and foster regional stability. And therefore, this became the core of the strategy. So, पहले मैंने गोल बनाया, right? पहले मैंने गोल बनाया, गोल के बाद मैंने strategy बनाई, right? Goal comes first and then comes your strategy, right? In all practical sense, you always make a goal and then you break it down further and then you develop a strategy around it. That is why we'll have A coming first and then, C will follow A, right? You first decided that you're going to be preparing or you're going to be appearing for CAT exam. And then you decided, okay, fine, these are 3, 4 ways through which I can probably study. These are the areas where I have to give mock. This is what I have to study first. This is what I have to study next, right? Okay. ABDC. How about you, Sivni and Anushka? I think we have other people tuning in as well. Guys, do give your answers to this question and then we'll discuss it. Sivni think it's three. All right. Anushka think it's four. Okay. All right. So let's look at all these sentences, right? Comments have the potential to turn a news website into a democratic polyphony. Uh, C is defining what democratic polyphony is. It can become a site for multiple concurrent debates. What can become a site? What can become a site? News website. For multiple concurrent debates, for registering dissent, for pursuing an idea, and finally for building a polity of informed choices. Right? So, the idea essentially is, you guys, to identify what the pronoun is referring to. What is it referring to? It is talking about the news website, right? And this said how news website can turn into democratic polyphony. C is defining it. So we know for a fact C will follow A. What democratic polyphony stands for is that it will become a site for concurrent debates, for registering dissent, for pursuing an idea, and finally for building a polity of informed choices. And then we are expressing a negative opinion. But there is also a danger of it descending to cacophony if readers do not express opinions in a language that behooves the requirement of a matured public sphere. And then we are saying we can resolve this by having moderators. The role of the moderators is to retain the space for polyphony and reject voices that breed cacophony. So ACBD in that context becomes the best arrangement of these sentences. So I think Anushka got it right. Well done, Anushka. Divyan Sivni, I hope you've understood this. Why I'm going with ACBD and not ABCD or ABDC? Does this make sense? Right? Can I move on to the next question? Right. Let me just. I think the visibility is not optimum for this question. Let me just. Right. So for this question, you don't have any answer options. You have to give me the sequence on your own. Alright, guys. Hope you are zeroing on your answers by now. Right. Let's look at all the sentences now. If you've reached the point where you're ready to hand censorship tools to an authoritarian regime in the name of making the world more open and connected, it's time to ask what mission you're really serving. Okay. For example, Facebook in 2016 secretly built a censorship tool, presumably to pave the way for future entry into China. When your company's ends are as grand as bringing the world closer together or accelerating the advent of sustainable transport, it becomes pretty easy to justify unsavory means. According to reporting by the New York Times, Mike Isaac, Zuckerberg responded to employees' concern by assuring them it's better for Facebook to be part of enabling conversation, even if it's not yet the full conversation. So, what is the context of the paragraph? What is the paragraph trying to tell us? The paragraph is trying to tell us how Zuckerberg did something to enter into China, and then we have, newspaper reporters, journalists commenting on it, and then we have a conclusion essentially, right? Because uh, look at A. If you've reached the point where you're ready to hand censorship tools to an authoritarian regime, right? So isse pehle we have to mention who handed censorship tools to what authoritarian regime, right? So we need B coming before A, right? And D is basically a comment on what Zuckerberg did to enter into China, right? So essentially what I'm trying to get at is that if we look at C as our opener, right, it is a very general statement, right? Our opening to the paragraphs are always general and then we become specific, right? So there's always the movement from general to specific, right? So C is general, bringing the world closer together, accelerating the advent of sustainable transport, right? And then we have the example of Facebook. For example, Facebook did this, and then we have the comment by the journalist, right? According to this, Zuckerberg responded to employees' concern by assuring them this, and then we have A as the conclusion of the paragraph. That if you reach the point when you're ready to hand censorship tools to an authoritarian regime, now we are basically going all out by saying, okay, fine, you know what? We know for a fact Facebook did this for China, and then we are concluding by saying that it's time to ask what mission are you really serving? Okay, Sivni, you went for CABD, right? So you sandwiched A between C and B. Let's look at that. See, A cannot come before B because in B we are telling, right? In B we are telling who did what. In B we are identifying Facebook doing something for China. When you say if you've reached the point when you're ready, who is this you referring to? Right? When you're ready to hand censorship tools to an authoritarian regime, what regime are we talking about? Right? Who is this you referring to? So all these answers are laid out in B. So we cannot use sentence A before identifying we are talking about Facebook and China. All right. So CBDA in that context becomes the most viable arrangement of these sentences. All right. Let's move on to the next question now. Yes, exactly. Paris or Lofus. Alright, guys, this one is not as difficult. Do you have your answers ready? Okay, Anushka thinks it's option 3. How about you, Sivni, Divyansh? Alright, let's look at the solution now. Right, let's look at all the sentences. Um, Sentence A. Interestingly, most creatures, including humans, vocalize using softer organs and membranes that tend to decompose instead of entering into fossil record. The family of duck-billed dinosaurs known as Parasaurolophus had been at the center of the paleoacoustic conversation. Uh, they are herbivores. Who are herbivores? Right? Who does they refer to? They are herbivorous creatures named for the shape of their mouths, but better known for the large bony crests arching over the back of their heads like a single blunted horn. We know for a fact BC are going to be linked. B is where we are identifying the name of the species. C is where they are commenting over it. Right? So BC are a clear link. Parasaurolophus is a rarity in this regard. In what regard? Right? In what regard is this a rarity? As no other animal has been known to dedicate so much hard fossil friendly tissue to making noise. So we know for a fact that this paragraph is about Parasaurolophus, right? So clearly B will be the opening sentence of the paragraph, right? So in that case, we eliminate options 1 and 2. So we're left with BCAD and BCDA, right? And when we say Parasaurolophus is a rarity in this regard, in what regard? In this regard. Interestingly, most creatures, including humans, vocalize using softer organs and membranes that tend to decompose instead of entering into fossil record. In this regard, Parasaurolophus is a rarity as no other animal has been known to dedicate so much hard fossil friendly tissue to making noise. So we are developing a contrasting statement here saying humans ka membranes and tissues decompose, Parasaurolophus ka does not. Right? So therefore BCAD becomes the arrangement, the most viable arrangement. Alright. Good job, Anushka. So with this, guys, we've come to the end of today's class. Uh, I am going to take a break for a bit now. I'll take breakfast, and 12 p.m. I'm conducting a special class on the Unacademy portal where we are going to be doing a mixed bag of questions. I'll take up reasoning, parajumbles, para summary, sentence elimination, sentence correction. So basically, anything and everything pertaining to verbal ability, I'll be conducting in that drill. It starts at 12 o'clock. The class starts at 12 o'clock. So do tune in, 12 p.m. On the Unacademy portal. All right. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow again at the same time, 10 o'clock, where we'll go over some questions once more. Right. Till then, stay safe, stay strong, and thank you for tuning in for today's class. See you guys.